because I can turn my head a little bit and it looks like I'm going straight ahead. I can make sure my feet are going in that same direction as my face, but everything else is facing this way. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. So it is Wednesday. That means that tomorrow is Thursday. As usual, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Coffee and Coaches conference call. Please join us for these calls. You see that I show these segments of the coffee calls here for the Q&As because these calls are really, really good. We usually go a couple hours. Great people, great questions. Please join us, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link will be on my professional Facebook page just prior to the call. All right, today's Q&A comes from a segment from the Coffee and Coaches conference call, and this was with Colin, and Colin had a question in regards to the right oblique orientation. Also had a request yesterday that came through Instagram that requested that we talk a little bit about the right oblique. So this is one of these representations that are, I don't want to say that it's simple, but it is certainly less complex than many situations. So early on in the right oblique orientation, we have preservation of internal rotations. And so it makes addressing adaptability, so there's your right oblique right there. And so again, early on where we don't have this anterior center of gravity shift, we don't lose internal rotations. So a lot of times you'll see people just following the orientation of the sacrum in regards to their movement. And in those cases, all we got to do is push them right back on the oblique axis in the opposing direction, which will be back into the left. And so this is one of those situations because we were talking about a hinging motion most specifically. But we'll break it down as to how you identify these things and then a couple of strategies in the call itself. So it will be useful for many, I think. If you would like to participate in a 15-minute consultation, please go to askbillhartman@gmail.com, askbillhartman@gmail.com, and put 15-minute consultation in the subject line. We will arrange that at our mutual convenience. Tomorrow evening is Intensive 14, by the way, so very excited about that. Intensive 15 has not been set yet. Got some stuff to do before we figure that out, but we will do that very, very soon. So make sure you get on the mentorship email list. And I will see you all tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Coffee and Coaches conference call.
More of like the left advancing presentation versus like the right oblique presentation. My current like heuristic understanding of identifying it is typically individuals who are on the right oblique will have that drop off and like right hip external rotation relative to left. And I identified that as like the right side being more anterior than the left side. But then something that Christian said was that the left pushes forward in front of the right, and that set me for a mental loop.
So hang on.
Okay.
Okay. Let me show you.
Please.
You see me?
Yes.
Okay. Right oblique. Okay.
Okay.
Where's straight ahead? Where is straight ahead now?
Over here.
Yep. And so they go like that.
So it's an absolute orientation and not a relative motion.
They're just following the sacrum, right? So the sacrum is now over here, and they get so there's straight ahead. They're just going straight ahead.
Okay.
You see it?
Yep.
So this doesn't change. They're just literally like if I sit in my chair and I face this way, that's all they're doing.
So they get turned right and then they get shoved right forward.
Well, if you're asking them to not move the axial skeleton in a relative manner, right? That's what he was asking them to do, right? Because he was saying, I don't know, he said they were doing a hinging motion, right?
Right.
So if my axial skeleton is actually facing that way now.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like it's going this way, but it's going that way, right? Because I can turn my head a little bit and it looks like I'm going straight ahead. I can make sure my feet are going in that same direction as my face, but everything else is facing this way.
Which is not
all they're doing is like literally they're doing exactly what he's asking them to do. It's just that the orientation is taking them over there.
So that's a case where you want to push back to the left.
Yes.
First to address the orientation of that whole thing kind of facing over towards
I'm pushing back into the left with my right foot, because all I have to do is create a reorientation under that circumstance. I don't have anything crazy added on as far as like the anterior center of gravity shift.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, because I had a dude come in, a client come in yesterday, and he's like a local strength coach, but he like kind of presented as like what I thought on like the right oblique, because he was dropping off like real sticky right hip ER, left hip ER was like 15 degrees more, but like the end feel was just different, right? And I forget what was going on with his IRs, but I also know he was short maybe like 15 degrees of hip extension on each side, maybe like a little bit more on the right than the left. But I just did like a left whole foot elevated, or rather like a left heel elevated, but like the whole foot was on like a slant board, right? And pushed him back and over to the left with like a little bit of weight. And
it's like an offset squat.
Hip extension came back, ER came back,
nice.
Improved. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like those days, because you seem really, really smart. You know?
Yeah, and then there's days where I try everything and like nothing works. I'm like,
that's what this scar is for right here.
Yeah.
This is where I bleed on the way home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Banging your head into the steering wheel.
Banging my head into the steering wheel every day. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Some days you get those presentations that don't have a lot of stuff added on. It's very rare in my world. So I give you, for instance, like I had a patient that came in yesterday, and it's like, so you ask him like, okay, when did this start? And he goes, 1983. That's a long time.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a guy said, oh, 2 weeks ago I was deadlifting and I tweaked my back. It's like those are the guys that are pretty easy to work with. It's like 1983. I was a junior in high school in 1983. You know, It's like, you know, it's been a long time. So, but yeah, it's like you did the exact correct thing, because again, the representation that you had, he wasn't an end game representation. All you needed to do is make sure he went back on the literally the opposing direction, and you immediately get the change. The nice thing is it's usually a very simple kind of a representation. It's like, oh, I just need to move you back on that foot. So you do that little offset squatty thing, and it's like, and they go, that's all I need to do. And you go, yeah. It's like, what are we going to do with the rest of the appointment? Oh, we can just, socialize if you want.
That's exactly how it went. I was like, well, you've been here for 20 minutes. We have another 40 to go.
There you go.
Cool. When you do have someone like, for example, I've been working with Artem, because I work with Artem on some stuff like related to like my right hip. And when I started,
my Artem?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I started, I was like an end game wide, because I had real poo straight leg raise on each side, like 45 and maybe like less on my right, and no hip IRs, worse on the right than the left, a bunch of hip ER, right?
Yeah.
So we pulled me back first, using like some downhill skier activities, right, to promote some like posterior lower yielding, right, to just give me more space to move into.
Yeah.
And like banded zercher breathing. I have a history of like CrossFit powerlifting, so I just squeeze the crap out of everything, right?
Sure.
And then we finally got to a point where I had like enough hip abduction that he knew he had pulled me back enough. And then we started doing like a left side lying right propulsion to orient me over towards the left. So with an example,
that's going to square you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to get you left, but it's going to get you going in that direction for sure.
So now I have like 20 degrees of left hip IR, and my ERs are pretty good on each side, probably like high 50s, maybe even like 60s each, right? But my right hip IR is still like pinchy and not good, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand conceptually what's going on with me, because I see a lot of me with the population that I work with, because I gravitate towards working with lifters, and my lifters who are really strong tend to be wider, right? And tend to present like me, right?
You still have an orientation.
Okay.
You still have an orientation. Okay.
Right.
You still got a little bit of work to do to bring the right side back.
That's what I was going to ask. I need to keep delaying the right side, right?
Yeah, you got to pull it back. It's still too far forward. That's what you're bumping into.
So right foot on wall cross connect.
I don't care how you do it. I don't care how you do it. I want you to understand the premise about what you need to do.
That was what the other question was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, you understand what I'm saying, right? As far as where you need to go with this thing, right?
Yeah, I still have to delay the right side because
Yeah,
it's still
yeah,
forward, and that's why I've lost the IR.
yeah. So you just got to create that first representation of you have to create the ER space on that side. Still, you don't have a full ER space. You've got more because you've got a space to turn into.
Yeah.
That's your 20 degrees of hip IR. So that's how much turn you have. So you're about a halfway there when you think about it. Right.
Um,
Yeah. So you're going in the right direction. But what I would say is I would still be trying to go back on the right first.
yeah.
Right. And then because what you should see when you get to a left side lying right propulsive activity is you should pick up a lot of IR on the left side. If you don't, you're still oriented.
I think for me, starting from like 0 IR in the left hip and like being nice to myself, -5 in the right, going to 20, I think is maybe like a representative of like picking up a substantial amount.
Oh, it is. But what I'm saying is like, so think about where you are in that representation of left side lying right propulsion.
Mm-hmm.
That's peak IR representation. So unless you only have 20 available to you for the rest of your life because of your structure,
Yeah.
right? Maybe that is all you have. I don't know. I'm not working with you.
I have no idea.
But my point is, it's like that would represent like the peak moment of IR, right? Because you're pushing
on the left side.
Yes, because I'm pushing the right sacral base forward to square to the front. Square to the front is going to be
mid propulsion.
It's going to be mid propulsion. So again, you should see peak IR show up. If it doesn't, like I said, it's not a bad thing. It just tells you it's like, oh, I still have an orientation going on here. That's why I didn't pick up more IR.
Right.
So when you're pushing into the wall with your right foot, you're orienting your whole pelvis. Like you hit a point where you've maxed out your IR, and then the remainder of that activity becomes orientation. So I would look at bringing yourself back more on the right, and then look at the position that you're in that right propulsive strategy. So my guess is, here you go. You get your foot too high on the wall.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So if the foot's too high on the wall, guess what you did? You oriented the pelvis.
Which would make sense if I'm more translated forward on the right side, because you're going to have less abduction available to me. So if I max that out, I'm losing all my room to move into, and then I turn like a fridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you took it all away. So you don't have it. You don't have any turning space.
Right.
So you need more turning space first, then go to your left propulsive activity, but don't it's like higher is not better.
No.
Okay. Because that jams you. It literally stops you from creating the relative motion to get your sacrum square. It's going to keep you in a late representation, and you'll never get the IR back. You'll just keep jamming yourself into an ER orientation. Do you understand? Do you see it?
I think when we have our call,
all you gotta do is raise somebody's leg up to the side, and then, okay, what people would look at and they go, oh, if I raise your leg up to the side, you side bend. It's not a side bend.
That's an IR compensation.
It's an IR compensation because you move somebody so far into ER where they don't have any space. And so they had to orient the pelvis away from the leg, right? And the only way that they can move away from the leg is to create an IR compensatory strategy above the pelvis in the spine. You see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's like you're on the right track. Okay. But what I would do is be a little bit more patient, capture some more ER, and then make sure that when you're trying to recapture the IR, that your representation at the pelvis is appropriate. Because I'm guessing you're overshooting your capabilities. Therefore, you're sticking yourself right back into a late representation.
Classic me. Okay.
You're just trying too hard.